Hello, my name is Anthony Jackson from OTbase Support, and welcome to another episode of OT Asset Management Weekly. Today, I'll be giving you a brief overview of the OTbase REST API and how easy it is to, test it out and view your data. And at the end, I'll show you a great package that we put together so you can start testing out our OTbase REST API for yourself. So, what is the REST API? So, the idea behind the REST API is to help you integrate with other systems and custom applications without having to manually manage the data yourself. So, for example, if you were to go ahead and export a file out of the system, let's say an Excel file, and you plug in your USB key and then you go somewhere else and you plug that key back into another computer, and because that computer has a special program and you want to ingest that information from OTbase to that custom application, you can just do it directly without that manual process. So essentially, the two application, OTbase and your custom application, will talk directly. And so, for instance, if your organization has a custom piece of software that they would like to work hand in hand with OTbase, then that software would communicate with OTbase via the OTbase REST API. Okay. So an example of our OTbase REST API, a sample integration would be our Power BI integration. So we built a Power BI integration that allows our clients to build out custom dashboards and reports without having to, custom dashboards and reports directly using the OTbase data directly from OTbase. Okay. So let's check out how easy it is to access the API and what you can access. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So right now we are in the OTbase platform. And in order to access the in order to access the API, you just need to have a account. I have mine's and I'm already logged in. And you need to have the right permission set, meaning you are able to access the full breadth of data or a segment of data. And today we'll be accessing a segment of the data because I didn't want to show you like the thousands of product data. So I just wind it down to a small section of data that you can do with the API. Well, not the first thing. So to access the API, you just go to this web address, you append it to your host, your domain that you have OTbase installed on. So that is your host domain. Let me see if I can zoom in here. There we go. Your host domain / OTbase / API v1 / devices for starters. Now, the API is organized around resources such as devices, networks, and vulnerabilities. And each of these resources you're able to access via a unique URL. And in this instance, we are accessing all of our devices. Oh, I was on mute the entire time. Oh my goodness. All right. Oh, that's just live streams. Oh my goodness. All right. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and backtrack a little bit. Let's go back. /OT base. All right. So for those of you who probably missed the intro, my name is Anthony Jackson. I'm just rewinding the tape back. My name is Anthony Jackson from OTbase Support, and welcome to another episode of OT Asset Management Weekly. And today I'll be showing you a brief overview of the OTbase REST API and how easy it is to view your data essentially. And at the end, I'll show you a great package that we've put together in order for you to get up and running and start testing out our API. So the whole idea behind the REST API is to help you integrate with other systems and custom applications without having to manually handle the data yourself. So for example, if you were to export, let's say, a spreadsheet from OTbase, let me show you this. Let's get this view. If you were, for example, to export a spreadsheet from OTbase, you would have to go to your, let's say, your custom application and then ingest it, where our OTbase REST API, it allows for your custom application to talk directly with the OTbase platform. So for instance, if your organization has a custom software custom software that they would like to work hand in hand with OTbase, that software would use the OTbase REST API to communicate with the OTbase platform. An example of this would be the Power BI integration that we built for our clients to create reports and dashboards. And that right there uses data that is sourced directly from the OTbase platform, meaning it talks directly to OTbase, and you're able to pull data from the OTbase platform into your reports. Okay. I'm sure many of you probably seen that on our YouTube page, by the way, because we have plenty of Power BI dashboards, because we know that the higher ups, the execs, they want to see numbers and nice setups and everything. So yeah, we have a ton of Power BI stuff on our website. So you guys can check that out when you get a chance. All right. So where I left off when I wasn't on mute. So what I wanted to show you is how easy it is to access our REST API. So let's go ahead and do that all over again. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen, like so. All right, so being that I have a local account, we're running off my test environment, for example. For instance, I have my user account already set, and it has the proper permissions, and it's scoped down to one site, because if I would have came in here with showing you all of my devices, it would have been like a whole mess. There's thousands of devices. So I scoped it down to one site, and this site is located in North America, and we're calling it the Flat Rock site. So how do you get to our API? You don't need any special tools to do this. You can access the API directly from a web browser. And the way the API works, it's organized around resources such as devices, networks, vulnerabilities, etc. And each of these resources, they're accessible via their own unique URL endpoint. So I'm going to zoom in here, right here. As you can see, we have our base URL, which is this network IP address right here, /OT-base. And the way we access the API is by entering this unique URL. So for instance, API/v1 devices. This is the devices endpoint. And it's going to show me all of my devices that I have in this one particular site. Because as I mentioned before, my user is scoped to one site, because I don't want to show you a ton of information. So let's go ahead and press enter. If you're not logged in, then you'll see a pop-up asking you for your credentials. So what I'm going to do here to make it human readable, I'm going to go ahead and pretty print this so you see all of this information. Now, what we're looking at right now is what we call the portable inventory data. And it's an envelope that encompasses all of our devices. It's essentially JSON. So what we've done, we've structured this data into, well, this particular one, into a large array of different devices. Here, it's devices. So in order to break this down some more, we can grab a particular device by ID. Let me see if we have a PLC in here by any chance. Here's one right here. Let's grab this. And the devices endpoints is currently showing us all our devices. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste this particular one in here. And then the OTbase platform responds with this device's information. Let's pretty print this. And so here are some of the information that we get from the OTbase platform regarding this particular device. It's a PLC. And we have hardware information like the vendor and the model, the type, the category that it's currently in. Also, we have location information like where it's currently located. This, for instance, is at our Flat Rock site. And we don't have any OS information about this. But as you can see, we get a breadth of information. So let's look up a Windows PC, for instance. Let's go back to the devices endpoint, pretty print this, and I'll just grab one. Here's one right here. So what I'm doing, I'm essentially looking up a device by its device ID, and that signals to OTbase to give me back all the information about this particular device. So as you can see here, for example, we have that OS information. It's running Windows Server, and this, for instance, is a computer. All right. And we also have search filters that we can apply to this. One search filter would be to include all the information about this device. And this information now includes things like any modules, software information. Here we have the software that's on the system itself right here. And that's the vendor of the software and also the category. So this is an application that we found on this particular system, along with the OS information, and it's running Microsoft Windows Server 2008. So since it's 2008, that means it has a ton of vulnerabilities available. There you go. Let me zoom in so you can see that closer. Yeah, and this list will just keep going on and on and on because we all know Windows systems by now. All right, so what else can you access with the REST API? You can also access your hardware information. And to do so, you just enter in hardware. You hit the hardware endpoint. All right. So what I'm doing, I'm talking directly to the OTbase server. So this is the type of communication that happens between, let's say, your custom application and OTbase. They speak together using a common language. In this case, it's the PID, the portable inventory data that we've developed here at OTbase. So this what we're looking at right now is all the hardware information that belongs to this, that we find at this particular site, namely the Flat Rock site. So this is all of our hardware information. And we can also look up our vulnerability, well, let's call it systems or systems in information at this particular site. And one cool thing that you can also do is relate devices with particular systems as a filter. You can filter through this data. So for instance, if I wanted to see all the devices that are associated with this system ID called lab, all I would have to do is go to the device endpoint, devices. Oops. I think I have a typo in here. I got rid of the V1. Devices. I'm just going to grab a device. All right, which device? I'm going to do this. We're going to type in a OT systems name, system, and we're going to put lab. And here are all the devices that are inside of that particular OT system that we call the lab. So everything here is associated with that OT system. And it's a good amount of information that we have in this particular OT system. So one of the things that people are very interested in is vulnerabilities. And you can look up that vulnerability information here from the REST API. Vulnerability. Oh, I am misspelling stuff all day. So that's vulnerabilities. Let me see if I spell vulnerability. Oh, did I get rid of? Oh, there we go. That's the problem. Yeah. Oh, live demos. There we go. That loaded up. So this is all of our vulnerability information that's associated with this particular site based on what my user can see. All right. So that's all the vulnerability information. As you can see, we have the CVE name along with the scores and also devices that are affected by particular vulnerabilities. So if I were to grab this random device and I go back to my devices endpoint and search that device by name, I can see all of its information. So this, in a way, is the behind the scenes of how two applications, namely the OTbase platform and your application or script, would talk to each other. And then from here, you can pull out the information that you need and pretty much use that information in either reports or whatever you plan on doing with it. For instance, we grab CVE information through our we allow you to access CVE information through our Power BI integration that you can use for your reports or your dashboards. All right, so continuing on, another endpoint you guys have access to is the locations endpoint. Hopefully I spelled it right this time. All right, cool. Let's pretty print that. And your locations endpoint contain all of your locations. And if you were to break up your organization into geographical units. So for instance, what I have access to is the Flat Rock site, which is located in North America, USA, and then the Flat Rock. And within the Flat Rock sites, we have other locations. So we pretty much partition down our site into different locations. So from here, we have the electrical workshop, the server room, what else? Down to the cabinets and paints and lab shops, you name it. All right, so that's locations. And by the way, you also have access to the different networks in a particular site. And again, this is all based on your user permissions and whether or not you are able to access that information. So here we have the Flatrock sites along with all of the different networks associated with the Flatrock site. So if you have multiple networks at that particular location, you will see all of that information there. And you'll have information such as the network ID, the IP address, and any VLANs if available, and reserve addresses. Here's one right here that Ralph is working on, his secret project. All right. So in a nutshell, this is the the breadth of information that you have access to via our OTbase REST API. If you have any questions about this, you can ask them here live, and I can answer them for you. And one other thing that I would like to show you is this package that we've put together. So if any of you are familiar with Postman, you can see that we've put together a whole collection that contains all of the available calls you can make to our API. And essentially, you can test things out for yourself. So, for instance, if let's say you're not the type of person that codes a lot, you just want quick answers, you can pretty much open up our Postman collection and get that answer. And it essentially works the same as the browser, but the difference is the browser, it requires some work for you to actually push information to the OT-based platform. Whereas a simple tool like this or any API REST client, you'll be able to push new information to the OT-based platform. So here it is right here. You can look up all types of information and get information also. So if I want to grab a list of devices, I can go ahead and send that request, and it shows me all of the, let me zoom in, all of the devices that are currently inside of our OT-based database that, once again, I have access to. You can add cool search filters like here, there's the count. If you want to wind it down to like, let's say 10, you can always apply that information to it. So like I said, it contains all the list of requests that you can possibly do to our system. And it's pretty much for testing purposes. And if you want, you can actually use it to, test out and write your scripts. And another cool thing about this in particular, Postman, is that you're able to get code for this. So for instance, if I were to look up a particular device, that code will be reflected here in the code snippet section. So this one is Python, for example, and they have some curl commands in here also for PHP. The list goes on and on. So if you're familiar with any one of these development languages, you can go ahead and, test out our API using some of this sample code that's found in our Postman collection. So let me see. There are any questions, I can go ahead and answer them for you. Let's wait a little bit to see if we get any questions coming in. All right. All right. All right. So no questions at the moment, but if any one of you guys do have a question, you can always reach out to us at support.langner.com. I can answer any of your technical questions. And my name is Anthony Jackson. And if you have any questions, like I said, you can reach out to me directly at aj@langner.com. All right. Thank you and have a good day.